sharpening on a whetstone? No, leather?
Leather with some buffing compound in there. I'm polishing at this point just to make sure that it's nice and razor sharp, because, well, the sharp tools are actually less dangerous because they need less force. Therefore, you're not muscling things in too much and can actually have a greater degree of control. Plus, it leaves a nicer surface finish so you don't have to sand. Normally, I would, be sanding when I'm all done with a project, but where I live on the coast, rust is always a problem. So keeping it polished with a compound like that, it's always a good idea.
Well, thank you for joining us today on LeapCast. We'd like to know a little bit more about Golden Antlers Woodworking. If you want to introduce yourself and tell us about you.
My name is Brian Schwartzberg. I live in coastal Northern California. I've been a woodworker for most of my life, ever since I was helping my dad on weekends, just do projects in the shop. He does a lot of fun, just like stuff out of dimensional lumber, and I decided that I wanted to get more into, at first, decorative woodworking, and that just branched into, including functional items, but still put my own take on things and I like to combine things to have more of an artistic flair, but also, always keep functionality in mind.
Tell me about the name Golden Antlers.
So the Golden Antlers refers to the medieval reenactment that I do, and in the reenactment people come up with their own heraldry, and when I came up with the heraldry to represent me, I chose to translate the symbols in heraldry that would translate into my actual normal, day-to-day mundane name. My middle name is Matthew, which means gift of God. My first name Brian is strength, and my last name Schwartzberg is Black Mountain. So a heraldic symbol for strength was antlers. One of the 3 gifts in the Bible is gold, so I made the antlers golden, and in the background there is a black triangle for the Black Mountain. Nice. And so it is one of those things that was a simple representation of me that I use in other places as well. And so when I needed to come up with an actual name for the shop, it was just easy to use that in place.
When did you start?
The shop itself started pretty much when I was done with college, and I just always did things on the side, again, in the afternoons or in the evenings and weekends, just working on, side projects after I was done at work. I've always, just like my dad loved, I'm happiest when I have a screwdriver or some other tool in my hand. And it was just, my day job was, fixing musical instruments. So I put the screwdriver down for fixing the flute to then, in my spare time to relax, pick up the screwdriver to work on the whatever, other project was now made out of wood. Yeah,
got it. So do you have a musical background?
I do. I actually have a degree in music, originally in trumpet, but because I fix instruments, I can play a little bit of almost anything I fix. Usually it's just to make sure that it works now, but brass instruments, I also play bagpipes, and I've made a few sets at this point, and I'm working on building up that part of the shop to make even more of them. But usually I spend more time fixing the instrument and only playing it just to make sure it's working than playing in any groups or anything like that.
So we are on site of a medieval reenactment event this weekend, and a friend of ours, Lena, was out playing her bagpipes this morning, and you've created a set for her?
I have. They're not the set she's playing right now because she just received them and hasn't gotten them all set up. But I'm actually meeting up with her later today to discuss some of the things that she had some questions about, since they're new to her and she doesn't know what to do yet, and she's overly excited.
She's very excited. So you talked about your dad, and he was a woodworker.
Yeah, He, in his teenage years, he actually worked at a big hardware store that closed down after he left, so he wasn't part of that. But he has always been someone who finds a lot of comfort doing projects in the shop, and there was always at least 2 or 3 things happening. He likes to build remote-controlled airplanes or do fun woodworking projects. A lot of the projects that I have on the shop are variations of ones that he did. For instance, I sell trivets that are based on a design that he came up with when he was in his 20s. And a lot of my approach to how I come up with a design or figure out how to build something is based on him teaching me how to come up with those ideas.
And you have one with you?
Yes, I do. He was also instrumental in me coming up with the idea of combining things. For instance, his was, a piece of tile with the wood border, whereas I went with things like resin for the cutting boards that I do, because that mixed medium gave me a little more freedom and a little bit more of my own personality in there. This is all walnut, one of my more favorite woods to work with. Walnut and maple are some of my favorites because they are very consistent in grain pattern, but also you can have a wide variety of colors and figures in each one that as you work on them, they will stand out and they will pop out and they will, get to show off the wood without having to do a huge amount of detail work to get there. Anything that I do that comes in contact with food or anything relating to the kitchen is all sealed in food safe finishes, in case, that way you can wash it in the sink, or especially in the case of a cutting board, it seals off the epoxy, because some epoxies are not food safe, and I do use food safe epoxies, but that way nobody ever has to question whether or not it is.
So tell me about this board.
So this board is made out of wood, but what I do is I run an electrical current through the wood, creating a burn pattern that looks a lot like lightning. And after I clean that burn out, I will then fill it in with different colored resins, depending on which color I want to use at the day. Then surface it back off and sand, and then it gets covered in a food-safe finish. So it's ready for use as even a cutting board or a charcuterie board. And each one is completely unique from any other board, as the electricity finds its own path in the board in order to complete the current or complete the circuit.
What's your favorite tool in your shop?
My favorite tool is actually a hand plane, and if for no other reason than the sound it makes when it's really sharp. And it's a bragging point of every woodworker when they're using hand tools, of keeping them sharp and how sharp can they get them. And so people get obsessed with making shavings, and they love to make the shavings, not remembering the fact that it's the wood that's left behind after using the tool that you actually are trying to work with, but it's one of those tools where, especially if I have I'm going to be using it for a while, I can sort of zen out while using it, because it's not until I get closer to the final surface do I need to then become more delicate, and I can just sort of keep going through the motions until I'm there.
Yeah. What is the biggest mistake you've made in the shop?
The biggest mistake I've ever made in the shop probably would have to do with using the resin. The surface that the board is sitting on needs to be incredibly level, because otherwise it just runs off the sides. And in doing a board for somebody, the table saw that I was using as a flat surface to rest the board on while the resin was curing wasn't quite level, and I then had to pry it ran off the side, ran onto the saw, ran under the board, and glued the board to the surface of the table saw. So I not only did I have to start over on that board, but I then also had to spend half a day chipping all of the old resin off of the table saw to make it flat again, and then sand it, and then make sure it was it added, and then start over on the board. So it added a substantial amount of time to that one board, especially because I then, whenever I do these boards, I then have to I have to leave the shop because any sawdust or any dust I create in the air gets into the finish, and I then have to get it out of there.
So you have a completely different area where you do the resin.
I have one area of the shop as far away from the rest of the tools as possible in order to have a less dust area.
What's the most interesting thing that you've been asked to create?
A friend of mine was asking for a set or a smoking pipe that looked like bagpipe parts.
Cool.
And knowing that bagpipes, all of the tubes are straight, and they want the curve in there, but they still want it to somehow look the same.
Interesting.
It's like, how do I marry these two very different ideas?
Yeah. I just, when you said that in my head, I thought of Gandalf's pipe because it's so long.
Yeah. Smoking pipes is not something I've ever attempted to make before either, so it's also very picky on wood choice. Because if you use the wrong kind of wood, either it will start to catch fire on its own, or certain woods are not safe for
inhalation,
for like basically internal contact.
Like black walnut would be terrible. Or like some woods that when they like any wood that is that grows something you eat is generally safe. But some woods actually are slightly toxic. Yeah, because I thought black walnut wood is toxic, isn't it?
It can be, depending, again, it would be the smoke you're getting off of it so I don't know how that would factor in.
Got it.
There's a lot of research into anything like that, which is part of why I haven't done it, as well as how am I even going to do this?
Yeah.
Because it's not in my normal set of skills.
Why did you start selling on what was then Drift as Leap that is now becoming Leap Handmade?
Well, I was already in the market for something other than Etsy or something, because I was tired of commercialized sell sites that were out there where I was noticing, everything that was there was just, somebody was importing it and then changing the labels and then marketing it as their own. And doing things by hand has always been, I am a very hands-on person, so doing things with my own hands and then trying to sell them versus, trying to make 1,000 of something. No, I want to actually have a hands-on approach to each piece that I do. It does mean things are a little slower to produce, but then I know I can do quality control and assurance. And the model that I saw on Leap Handmade, now, as it's called now, it was one that I could absolutely get behind, and it just seemed like such a good idea to sort of reclaim that corner for people, artists or craftsmen, as I consider myself more a craftsman. But to have an outlet where they, felt like they were being seen again.
Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all of the best success.
Absolutely.